Well, hello everybody. I always seem to get a little bit excited when I get my Daphne's diary because one just never knows what's inside. And today I would like to share this latest copy with you. And this is number 7 of 22. And you can see it's got a lovely sort of autumn feel to it. Lovely mushrooms and things like that. I love the covers of the Daphne's diary because they are really nice and firm, so it lends itself to making other journals with that. So let's have a look together, shall we? Lovely autumn colors, lovely autumn leaves, lots of things here which you could fussy cut. I really do like those. And when you are looking at the diaries, just look at this lovely font that they've popped into there. I find that I use quite a lot of this writing for labels and tags and things, and I think here too I would fussy cut maybe around the sunflower and that and use some of these colors. Strips like that are always great. So some of the things that I will do is just to be able to have just a pack of different size strips. You never know what you might need them for, but quite often a little strip could be made up into something like a ticket. And you can have a look at how we make those up. These haven't been decorated yet, but those little strips on the sides I find are quite useful for tickets and for things like postage stamps. When we get to this page, I find that there are loads of things that I do, and I've got these lovely little tins that a friend at work gives me, and I think she thinks I'm a bit bats, but I collect all my little numbers here, so if I'm making up a tag or something, I've got these numbers in different fonts, in different styles, and I just pop them in these little tins and hang on to them. So that one is numbers. So just have a look at that. You've got all these little numbers, you've got words that you can keep, that I do keep as well. You've got lots of things in frames, and those are really useful because if you are wanting to make sort of like little mini postcards and things, those would work really well. Quite often there's a theme of art or art materials in the Daphne's diary, so you've got again some brushes, and if you start collecting those, once you get to do a diary perhaps on that particular theme, you would have it. And then there are all these lovely sort of watercolor images which I just love, and the leaves. Yeah, really lovely sort of images to use. Even these little autumn elves, as she calls them, those would be nice to fussy cut and maybe pop onto a tag, or you could just put them on a little sucker stick and use them as something that you could pop out of a magazine. Rather a nice idea here where they've taken the leaves and painted on that. I've actually done sort of some dot work on dried leaves. I actually go down a lovely lane to the farm where I work every day and pick the leaves from the hawthorn hedges and the berry bushes and things, and I've been pressing them. So I have a plastic folder in my backpack and I think the people think I'm nuts. I'm always diving into the bushes looking for things, but you know, when you do journals and stuff, you're always thinking, well, what about, you know, a pressed leaf, or what about a pressed flower? And during the summer months it was lovely because I was able to pop in there and get Victoria plums and damson plums and blackberries and all sorts of things. Anyway, that's just me. I'm a bit nuts like that. These kind of borders I just love. So I have some border die cuts, and what I quite often do, I wonder, I probably need a piece of white paper to show you this. Hang on, let me just grab a piece of white paper. So where I've got a border like that, I will often take my different patterns of die cuts and I will cut them out of these kind of pattern backgrounds, or even just a strip on the side. And I just love the way that they aren't all one flat color. Quite often when you're doing die cuts, you're working with just one plain piece of card. And when you do collage and mixed media work, it's really nice to have some sort of interesting textures and shapes. So I think I've got about, there are about 6 different designs in my die cuts. And then I will just have an afternoon in a winter's month on this couch with my die cutting machine, and I'll cut out loads and loads of these. So if you have a look at what I have already done here from a previous Daphne's Diary magazine, you would see that, especially perhaps this one, you would get something very similar like that out of this strip. And these are really nice just to add to your collage work. You know, you could make a lovely masterboard with those, and they would be great fun to use at a later stage. So here again you've got those lovely die cuts, you've got lovely colors, and just don't discard the textures and things that you have here. They look great on tickets and labels, just as something a little bit different. Even that you could cut really quite nice little labels or tickets as backgrounds. Lots of nice sort of tropical features here. I think I would fussy cut out these sort of little wooden creatures which have been painted, maybe some other things. Also, when you're looking at these magazines, look for small images that you could use for stamps. So I mean, I might like to cut out a piece of that to make a little faux postage stamp with. That would be a rather nice thing to do. Always lovely things for recipes, and I just love this blue and white stripe watercolor background. Seeing it, I just feel I want to get my paints out again, and it is that time of the year where it's nice and warm, still outside, but it's getting cooler in the evening, so you do dive in a little bit sooner, and time to get the paints out. I think summer's really busy. Alright, so here we've got loads and loads of things that you could fussy cut. Your leaves, which will be your nature things, little soft toys, animals, and you don't have to use them all in the same journal. I tend to look for a couple of themes and start collecting images on those themes, put them into some kind of folder, and then when I'm ready to do a journal, I can go off with that. Okay, here's a nice large postage stamp that would be great. That's rather a fun image, but also if you don't want to use that as an image, you've got lovely colors there and also nice text. You could use a die cut or just cut out little labels with those texts, and I think that would be rather a nice addition. I love these. Those illustrations are really nice, probably something that you could do with a sort of beachy kind of theme. And also here again, lovely soft colors, so you could put different words on that. Here again I would use the colors probably more than the recipe, because I'd rather be crafting than cooking, I must be honest. Okay, lovely watercolor images here. I love watercolor because I paint with watercolors, so I would obviously probably want to keep something like that. And you've got nice text here. This would make just a lovely background for something really lovely. And if you were working on something like one of these little mannequins, you could actually 3D it by stringing your own beads on there. That would be a nice addition. Lovely berries. Reminds me of a lady back in Cape Town. I can't remember what her name was, but I got her to come and teach a class on preserving flowers. And she was really knowledgeable about the flowers, but she had me clambering through bushes and all sorts of things to collect what she needed to show the students. But we had a wonderful time. It was a 6-week course, and she taught us all sorts of different ways of preserving flowers. So you might not know this. If you have something like gum leaves and you're wanting to preserve them, you just put some water into a vase with some antifreeze. Yes, and I said antifreeze. And then you put a drop or two of food coloring in, and what happens is that it just dyes the water and it gets drawn up into the flowers, so that with your gum leaf, which is normally grey, you could make the veins turn pink or green or blue. And because you've got the antifreeze in, which creates a sort of soft, flexible texture to the leaf, it's actually really nice to be able to preserve the leaves. They look natural, but they're also flexible and don't get brittle and hard and just crack after a period of time. Lovely images. I love this old-fashioned scale. That would be really a nice addition to a journal. In fact, I'm making a kitchen themed journal for a colleague of mine at work, so that might fit in nicely with there. Paper dolls. Didn't you just love paper dolls as a child? When I was growing up, we had them, and we had the little doll, and then we had dresses with those tabs that you used to fold underneath. I must say I've looked for some of those and I haven't seen them. All the dolls that I see are more sort of art dolls and more sophisticated, but this was a nice sort of throwback to that. That's just the limbs for the dolls, but you've got lovely papers here. And if you were to do the doll and cut those out, then by all means keep these backgrounds, because you've got lovely strips that you could use for all sorts of things. I did a video with one of the previous Daphne's diaries where I actually just took 2 pages, cut out the butterflies that were on those pages, I then went ahead to see what I could make just with the backgrounds, and it was a phenomenal amount of stuff. So don't throw it all away, because the paper is nice quality. Lovely paisley design, and here a lovely colour, really lovely colour that I would use more than anything else. Louise has sort of nice places that she's been to, and again here I think I would use backgrounds more than the actual words. I'm always on the lookout also for unusual fonts, and obviously nice greenery and little illustrations which you can use. Frames here you could just change, so I mean I could take this, cut that out if I wanted to, and just put another picture in from behind. That would work well. This is almost like stitching around the edge of the pictures, isn't it? But that you could do on your sewing machine if you've got one. Alright, lovely textures again, and a nice picture to colour if you wish, or just use it as a black and white image. Soups and recipes, rather be doing crafts. But here we go. Nice little blackboard, that would be a nice addition to your journal. You've got little tags that you could cut out and put a nice background on that. And you could use one of these backgrounds, you know, something that's got a nice texture like that. You could put at the back. Lovely colours, loads and loads of things that I could use here. Lovely sort of pinky, purpley, bluey colours. Alright, previous editions. And then we always find in little surprising things in Daphne's diaries, but they are always joined with sort of like a silicone pressure sensitive tape, so I get that off as soon as possible, because you can see it leaves this sort of almost an oily residue. It doesn't shine through on this paper, but it has shown through on this one. So these are labels for fortune cookies, that's what they've been designed for, but you could use them as little tags, you could use them as postage stamps. They've already got dots on them, so they look a little bit like lines. And if you wanted to make them as tickets, you could just punch holes on the sides and then just use your punch just to make a sort of quarter circle on the corners. You've got tickets there already. Alright, so let's just put that on the side. Love this composition with the little birds. I really just think that is fabulous, and possibly something nice for a cover of something. These textures here really appeal to me. Yeah, just delightful. Really delightful. There's always a load of food themes too, so if you do start to collect some of these things together, very soon you'll have a diary. Look at these lovely birds that tie up with the previous one, just absolutely gorgeous. And then you've got the fans. Oh my word, how beautiful. Sort of thing that I think my mum would like. Right, here I would collect a lot of the words and the text for backgrounds for various things. That's really just lovely. Alright, these are the images that I say would be super in some kind of a cookbook or a recipe book, something for a foodie kind of person. I got this in frame that you can see it. These books are so tall compared to a normal book. I'm not always sure that I am in frame. Here we go. So we've got those lovely food images, nice textures again here. The orangey colours aren't really me, but I can work with them nevertheless. Here's a very nice simple journal that's just been stitched together very simply. And if you have a look on my channel, I've done a couple of journals where I've shown you how I stitch them together. Some using old paintings that are sort of half done, where I've stitched those together. Some just using Coptex binding stitch. Yeah, so we'll see lovely illustrations that you could use. So you could quite easily cut that out and make it a nice feature. Embroidery things make beautiful, beautiful stamps and focal points. Well, that's actually a painting, but it almost looks like an embroidery. This you could fussy cut out, that would be gorgeous. And don't throw away these little borders, because if you had to cut around those, you would be able to use them as an edging somewhere. Oh, pom-poms. What fun. When my children were quite small, a friend and I just had this crazy idea. We were going to make these woven Easter baskets out of that old-fashioned slippery florist's ribbon. And then we decided they needed bunnies and chicks to go in. And in those days we couldn't buy the good old pom-poms from China, so we started to make them. Made up a couple of samples and went around to a few shops, and then we had so many orders we didn't know what to do. We just sat on the couch and laughed, and I had my son and my husband and everybody sitting there making pom-poms to be able to complete this order. So it brings back quite a humorous memory for me, but this is rather a fun way to use up just even odd bits of yarn and make something for yourself or for someone else. Lovely, lovely neutral colors here. Sheep, Angora goats. There's, oh goodness me, I was going to say they remind me of South Africa, and this is the wool comes from Angora goats in the Karoo, and that's a desert area. You can get onto these roads here, and they're mostly flat and straight, and you just drive and you drive and you drive and you drive. But the light in the morning is just magnificent. So this is actually from South Africa. I thought it was a familiar kind of looking road. They get a lot of mohair from there, and it's very, very arid. They've just had a lot of drought, so it's been really hard on them. Weaving and spinning. So there in South Africa, the farmers' wives are often very entrepreneurial, and they will teach the wives of those farm hands how to do various crafts so that they can actually earn an income and become empowered, just so that they don't sink into poverty, because sometimes it's so far to the nearest town, and most of these businesses are so successful. So this is just a weaving business that they've started. How interesting. Home from home. Look at this, a lovely little sticker. These are all nicely on little backings already, so ready to use. You can use them in a planner, make your agendas. And then these recipe cards, they come in every issue. You just pop them out, so that would come out. But then you've got all these lovely borders that you can use. So you've got a foodie theme on one side and illustrations on the other. And this kind of faux stamp was from one of the previous food things which I popped out. So all I did was to actually divide it up. I made a little edging here, and I took my little rotary cutter, this one that as you use this for sewing. It's not, sorry, a rotary cutter, a little tracing wheel, and normally you just use this to mark your patterns, and I just drew lines with that which give you the perforations. And then if you just take your punch and you just do half of the hole, you'll be able to get those. And then all I have to do is just stamp on there and just give it a bit of decoration. So don't discard these borders, they're gems. These flowers will pop out, and if you have a look on this side, you can see where the pop out area is, and it's nice firm card, so you'll be able to do something beautiful with that. Lovely areas of background color for you. This is rather fun, especially the next page, I think it was. Yes, look at that lovely little clothesline. I think I would use that in a journal. I think that that's just a charming little addition. Nice travel features. But okay, so have a look here. If you're looking at the buildings, you've got different badges, you've got clocks, you've got sort of ornate features on various buildings. I would be inclined to cut those out, because I could use those as stamps, or I could use those to decorate various things. This is a goldmine of different things. Look at all these lovely little windows, rows and rows of little windows. Or if you wanted to create a little collage just using the houses there, or rows and rows of these lovely sort of oxidized chimneys that look like vertebrae. Yeah, that's rather a fun page. Okie dokes. Oh, so this is just look at the bottom and see which is the original, which is the forgery. Okay, so that's like spot the difference, I would imagine. And then this is somebody doing paper art. Yeah, rather lovely. I presume that they're using a die cut machine for some of this, but rather gorgeous. I remember seeing people do this incredible felt work too, just with felt from the normal craft shops, and they'd cut out these things and decorate hats and little needle cases and things. Really lovely. Okay, so we've got conkers falling on the ground at the moment. My colleague at work has masses of them, and I've been collecting the acorns and some of the little caps from the acorns. And then I saw this and I thought that's a lovely thing to do with my trainees, just as a fun thing one day when it's really icy, because I can tell you, when it gets 1 and 2 degrees outside, we do look for things to do in the polytunnel. And we've been pressing a lot of leaves and flowers to be able to make things. That's also rather nice, rolling up leaves. They say maple leaves are best to make these with, I suppose, because the shape would just lend itself to doing that. This could actually be a rather gorgeous cover for a journal, quite a big one, and then it almost looks here, it could just be my imagination, just like a little bird sitting in the tree. But that's lovely. I love the way that that just fades into nothing. Okay, lovely background colours and the pages here. Gemstones, if you're interested in those, give you all the nice textures and things. We used to have these places in Cape Town called the Scratch Patch, and when my children were young, it was just the most wonderful place to go to, because it was like a sandpit, but everything inside there was just gemstones, and you could get a plastic bag for whatever the amount was, I can't remember, 5 rand say, which is like 50p in the UK. And then you could fill it with stones until it was full. And these kids used to fill it with stones. And we had we didn't have pearls and their own diamonds, obviously, but there were a lot of semi-precious stones in there. And the kids just loved it. They thought that they were millionaires by the time they came out of there. Dried flowers and presents. But here, again, you've got lovely images that you could fussy cut out. All right, this is rather an unusual page. So she calls these forest elves. So these are like paper dolls that you can cut out. However, if you don't like the dolls, you could use that background page. And then these are their wings. Now, the concept I like. I'm not 100% certain about the dolls. I don't know what it is. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's because their faces are fairly realistic. I don't know. One could do a little bit of fun there. Play around, put some different faces on. I'm not sure. And I think I'd leave the wings off. I don't think they need wings, personally. Lovely watercolor images of fruit there and leaves. That it would definitely be useful. And then you've got a very nice, firm card here if you don't use those as wings. You can see this is really nice and sturdy, so that would make a good cover for something. Licorice, that's always interesting. Gosh, we got to a point in South Africa where nobody was producing licorice anymore, and I don't know why, because the doctors used to always say, if you've got low blood pressure, have a bit of licorice. So who knows, but anyway, that's the way it is. Lovely blossoms. Again, lots of little frames here which you could use. Put your own images on there, and different things to do with pumpkins, journal text, lovely as backgrounds. I think I like this because it's just in blue, you know, it's just a little bit different. This is rather fun. So if you didn't want to use it as pumpkins as such, just take the different colors and see what you could use. You could do tags, you could do little bits of bunting, you could string things up, cut different shapes out of them. And then this is a nice sort of page where you've got quite big patches of pattern paper, and then also different verses, which I think I would make into tags. Probably I would just rule these with a ruler and a pencil and mark them out, because you'd have to cut them pretty accurately. And then this is the ad for the 2023 diary, but there's so much here that you could use individually for little bookmarks and stuff like that. Painting stones, been doing a lot of that at the moment for church, with little gospel verses. And on Sunday I went to a friend for lunch, and I knew that there was some kids coming, so I painted some stones white so that they could decorate them, and they're always just fun, they're just joyful. We had this thing going in South Africa where you went for a walk in the forest and you would put your painted stones, and somebody else would have the joy of finding it and they could take them home. And it just spread, it just went everywhere. So just about everywhere you went, you could pick up a stone on a hiking trail somewhere. I love this background paper here. Here's some more. Nice sort of autumnal theme. And more. Really spoilt with papers in this particular issue. Really spoilt. Thanksgiving, and that's a lovely border to edge a piece of paper. If you were putting a piece of plain card as an insert into a journal. I think that would be gorgeous. And then obviously you've got these lovely backgrounds as well. So the covers are really nice. Quite often I will separate these and I really push back this back page here. I really flatten this out as best I can. And then I will pick up, and I always do this, I'll pick up 2, maybe 3 pages, and from the back I start to gently pull the pages out, and I find by doing this that I don't actually tear them as easily as if I was starting at the front. But the first page is always the most difficult. Yeah, there we go, because you've got to get the spine to split away from the actual bulk of the book. Okay, so now I've got the spine to separate, then this is easy. Now I will just take a couple of pages together and I will tear that out, and then it gives me the flexibility of saying, do I want this page with that, or how am I going to actually use the journal. And I'll do that all the way to the front. Sometimes, if I'm very fortunate, everything stays intact front and back, but you can see here this one is torn a little bit, but I'm not phased about that. I'll probably use them separately. And then you also get one other thing in Daphne's diary. Oh, hang on, let me show you the whole cover, because that's rather lovely. So that's the whole spread, the front cover and the back, and then we get a poster always, and that poster is also a lovely autumn theme. And I find quite often too with these that you are able to divide it in the middle so that you could use one and the other, but this particular one, because it's got this face in the middle, is not as easy to do. So you'd have to think about how you're going to use it, whether you would fussy cut that out, use it as a whole page. But there are lovely, lovely bits and pieces, and these almost have a golden sheen to quite a lot of the illustrations. So I'd love the colors and things, but this in the middle means that it's not so easy just to fold one and the other. Having said that, let's just have a look and see what it looks like. I suppose you could. You just wouldn't see the whole face, but that could be the front and the back of one, and then you've got half a head. Yeah, that doesn't really work, but you could make it smaller. You could cut it down here and fold it. That would also work. So you would have to just give some thought as to what you're going to do. Well, my friends, thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed this Daphne's diary, and I've been so delighted to share it with you. So this is the latest one that's come out, number 7 of 2022, Daphne's diary. And I look forward to sharing some more ideas with you. There is a playlist with some of the other Daphne's diaries I've done with a couple of projects, so please have a look at that. I'll link them below. Bye for now.